Image is very important to modern business people because if they don't look the part, they're not going to be believable to potential clients. The research I've done with the Fortune 1000 CEOs and FTSE 100 companies confirms that the three key things to get on in your career include, number one, first-rate communication skills. Second to that, a good personal image, how you look and how you behave. And after that, actually, the qualifications, that business degree. So it's terribly important. Your image is comprised of many factors. First and foremost, we take in your size, your coloring, and how you're dressed. That has an impact on us. And people have prejudices against large folks, small folks, so you need to make the most of whoever you are. The next thing, of course, is how you behave, your demeanor, your body language. Your handshake says a lot. We know we got a lousy one, but do we know what ours is all about? So your behavior is quite important. The voice, the quality of the voice is worth 38% of the impact that you have on people when you meet them for the first time. So it's very important, all these sort of non-verbal signals that we're sending, far more so initially than actually what we're saying. Of course, there are cultural differences when it comes to developing your image. What actually works quite well in Frankfurt might not travel so well to, say, New York or Tokyo. So an image that works well in your own country sometimes needs a little adaptation when you do travel abroad. The key is just to be observant when you are traveling. Take in some signals. How are people different? How do they look different, behave different? And therefore, if that market is becoming important to you, perhaps you need to do some shopping there or to learn a few things and adapt your presentation to fit in more quickly. A good image for the 90s is quite a different thing than it was in the 1980s, when it was pretty aggressive and in your face. Today, in the 90s, communication in business and a good image is all about breaking down barriers as quickly as possible. It's user-friendly. It should be really quite understated to work well.
And that's
God of commerce, Ebisu, seated in front of a cash book in which he's got various sums written down, and on the abacus on top he's calculating his wealth. That's worth about £4,000 to £5,000.
The suit forms the foundation of a man's wardrobe. But how many men really understand what suits them, their body, their build, and actually how to get value for money when shopping? Well, here we have Jim this morning with us, who's in a suit, well, it's past its sell-by date, Jim. How long have you had this one?
About 5 or 6 years.
It looks it, my dear. Good. So you need a new one, do you?
Definitely.
Okay. I think we need some tips on how to recognize what to buy this time. So let's have a look at Steve here at Turnbull and Asser, who is in a beautiful suit, and it's perfect for him. This is a British cut suit of the absolute top quality, excellent quality wool that you actually can scrunch up and it bounces back into shape without any wrinkles at all. The 6-button double-breasted is a great look for a guy of Steve's proportions. Buttons in the middle there. You never button that bottom button. And turn to the side here, the double vents, which is really a classic for the British cut suit. When a man buys a suit, make sure that there's no pulling across the back at all or excess fabric, which you don't want in a British suit, but you will see in a European cut suit. If you have nice long legs or evenly proportioned, turn-ups in the trousers are going to be a good bet, but if you shorten the leg, forget them. After you've selected that great suit, you now need a distinctive tie. Your tie conveys your status as well as your personality. So, Jim, what about this tie here? What personality is that screaming at us?
Well, it's not actually mine, it's my dad's tie. So.
Well, he looks like a nice guy, but I think we need something better for you. First of all, we need to think about colors that are going to go with the whole wardrobe. You don't want colors that actually require different colored suits and shirts, but you want to establish a color theme. Also, the scale of the pattern of that tie is just too insignificant. It belongs on a much smaller chap. You need something far more dynamic and bold because you're a big guy. Then, of course, we have to think about the right tie for the occasion. Now, research has shown that actually blue ties are very effective, say, for the job interview. But, say, a presentation, that would require something more bold to hold eye contact, particularly if you're on a platform. So a little bit of red and a distinctive pattern would be great there. Going out in the evening, you want something to pick up the light, so an elegant woven silk would be a good bet. So in selecting ties, be aware that the quality, the color, and the symbols of the tie convey everything about you to people that you deal with.
My favourite object is my late 40s American Schaefer pen, which incidentally they've started making again, which I bought, but this is an original one which I bought at auction at Bonhams quite recently. And I like it because it has the most weird action of filling. Twist the knob here, and this thing comes out in the end, see? And you stick it in the ink. So the nib never actually goes in the ink, it's just that debris. And then you just pump, and then screw it round. And what do you get? A full pen. Just like that. The bank would send that one back.
And that's just about it for the programme.
Have you ever found yourself at a business luncheon or corporate entertaining event and wondered how to behave, been a bit confused? Increasingly, business is being conducted outside of the office in social settings. Business people are having to learn the accepted rules of dining etiquette, not just to present their best to clients, but also to be able to relax, to enjoy the event, and to attend to the business at hand. The business lunch or dinner, a marvelous opportunity to build relationships and do some deals, but can be a potential minefield of disasters. So I'm joined by Jim today, a client of mine. Nice to see you.
Hello.
What's this glass of wine? I've yet to even join you. Now that doesn't send a very good signal when you have a drink in front of you before the guests arrive. So let's get rid of that. It's much better to refresh yourself with a glass of mineral water. But having a glass of wine during a business meal is perfectly acceptable. And obviously you'd like a drink today, wouldn't you, Jim?
I would, yes.
Okay, by all means have one. But I want to keep a clear head for negotiating the deal. So how am I going to make Jim feel comfortable? Am I going to put my hand over the glass, or am I going to turn it upside down? No, that's too much of a palaver. I'll let the waiter fill up the glass, and Jim feels comfortable drinking while I nurse my mineral water.
Cheers.
Cheers. So once the food arrives, you shouldn't attack it with too much gusto. So you shouldn't be starving before you have a business lunch. You should perhaps have a bread roll ahead of time. But hold on, what are you doing with that bread roll? Never use a knife on it, Jim. We just pull it apart, okay? You just pull the bread apart, and that's the way you eat your roll. Now soup, that can be a potential disaster, can't it? Let's have some soup. Now hold on a sec. No, Jim, we don't do it that way. Let's go away from ourselves with the spoon and sip the spoon from the side, never from the end. Now, fish is a healthy but a rather tricky option at a business lunch, particularly when it's served on the bones. That's something we want to learn today. So what you want to do is to learn how to separate it. You cut along the backbone, lift the flesh off gently, slide that knife underneath the backbone, lift it, and put it on, all the remnants on the plate that's been provided.
So, Mary, what do we talk about at a business lunch?
Well, the art of conversation in the business entertaining is as important as your manners. But you know, getting it right can be very tricky. It varies from country to country. In France, for example, if you talk business at the beginning, you'll be dismissed as a total peasant. But to the Americans, of course, they want to get right down to business, and they'll start writing calculations right on the tablecloth from the start. If in doubt, good idea to just follow the lead of the host or guests that you have with you. The key thing is to try and relax and try and find what interests the customer or the client.
Cap.
In business, we need to be aware of the signals that we send through our behavior. Our body language tells others how confident, capable, and successful we are, no more so than when we meet people for the first time. In those first few minutes, we give ourselves away. 55% of the impact that we make depends on how we look, how we behave. 38% depends on the quality of our voice, and only 7% comes down to what we say. Well, a rather unspectacular beginning, Jim. Shall we try it again? Okay, now when you enter the room, you want to have positive posture, nice erect posture, and a good pace about you. Now let's say hi. Handshakes. Now, handshakes are so important. They send great signals about ourselves. You're a little diffident about meeting me here today. I don't blame you. Let's try it again. I want that to be a web-to-web handshake, nice and firm. That's good. And I like a smile on your face when you shake hands, too. But, of course, along with the handshake, we have to take into account the amount of space or territory that a person feels comfortable with. And that depends a lot on where they're from and their background. In some parts of Europe, like the Mediterranean and Italy and Spain, they like to get right on top of each other. But in more northern climes, they need a little bit more space. But as you're from Britain, I think you need a little bit of space to be comfortable. Okay, so let's go into that meeting. The shrewd business person, when attends a meeting, not only observes what's being said, but also takes in the behavior of colleagues around the table. Because if you can listen to the words, but also the behavior, you're going to be quite aware of what they really think about you. Sometimes the face doesn't give away what they really think, but what's going on underneath the table is more honest. So if in doubt, move away and observe those legs and feet. Now, tapping feet will display irritation with what's being said, but shifting feet and legs means that person wants to get out of this meeting fast. So signs of irritation of when you're not getting across include watching people when they're flicking their pens, looking at their watches, flipping through their papers, or just slumping back in their chairs and staring at the ceiling. To recognize signs of aggression of when you have a few opponents, start to watch other signals. And that's when people actually start shifting away from you. They move in their seats and they cross their arms as a barrier against you in what you're talking about. For a positive impression, then, you want to sit forward, smile on your face, and actually it's smart to take a few notes. Business executives grooming themselves for high exposure eventually need to learn the art of media presentation for television. Like leading politicians, President Bill Clinton, Prime Minister John Major, they have to learn that the presentation via TV is quite different than in person. Bill Clinton is now the master of television. In the early days, when he was running for president, he looked like a real country bumpkin. But now, he's actually very pleasing, very simple to watch on camera, he's very positive, and his voice is rather folksy. You feel like you're having a conversation with him.
America is very, very proud of you.
John Major, by contrast, has not been a natural for television. Although he's